Hey everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Ancient Echoes, your new go to podcast for uncovering the most interesting mysteries and theories of ancient civilizations. My name is Justin, and although I'm still learning a lot about these incredible sites and stories, I can't wait to share some of the most fascinating unsolved mysteries on Earth with you and my friend Marcus.
And I'm Marcus. It's great to be here with you, Justin, co-hosting this podcast. We're diving into some truly fascinating puzzles from the ancient world, mysteries that have kept researchers scratching their heads for centuries.
That sounds amazing. Marcus, I know you've been doing some serious deep diving into these topics. Can you give our listeners a quick preview of what we're exploring today?
That's right. And what's really interesting about these mysteries is that even with all our modern technology, right, all these amazing tools we have now, we still can't figure them out completely. There are just some things in the ancient world that are truly unknown, just like the ones we will discuss today.
Should we just dive right into these mysteries? I mean, I'm super curious about all of them.
Absolutely. We've got some fascinating places to explore. We're talking about massive stone jars, mysterious lines in the desert, and even a potential Roman presence in Brazil of all places. So let's get started with our first mystery.
So, tell me about this first mystery, the Paracas candelabra. Like, what makes it so special?
Oh man, this is just incredible, you know? We're talking about this massive, and I mean massive geoglyph that's literally carved into the side of a hill overlooking Pisco Bay in Peru. And it's not just big, it's actually about 600 feet long.
Wait, so what exactly is a geoglyph? Just so our audience is informed.
Right, right. So basically, it's this huge design that's made on the ground, or in this case, on a hillside. They essentially carved these deep lines into the surface, and then when you step back, it creates this amazing pattern that looks kind of like, a three-pronged candelabra, or maybe a trident.
And how old is this thing?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because archaeologists have found pottery around the site that dates back to about 200 BC. But here's the thing. We're not actually completely sure if that's when the candelabra itself was made. Like the actual age of the geoglyph itself is still unknown.
So, do we have any idea why they made it?
There are actually several fascinating theories about this. Some researchers think it was this huge navigational aid for sailors, right? Because it's right there overlooking the bay, and it would have been visible from really far out at sea. But then others believe it has this deeper religious significance, They think it might represent a deity's trident, and some even connect it to ancient religious ceremonies.
But we still don't know for sure?
Not at all. And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? Like, imagine the amount of work that went into creating something this massive, this permanent, and yet we still don't really know exactly why they did it. It's just sitting there on that hillside, keeping its secrets after all these centuries, you know what I mean?
So what's next on our list of ancient mysteries?
Oh man, you're gonna love this one. It's called the Plain of Jars. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, right? We're talking about these massive stone jars scattered across northern Laos. And when I say massive, I mean some of these things are nearly 10 feet tall.
That's huge. Like, what were they used for?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, The local folklore, right? They've got this amazing story about giants, like these huge beings who use these jars as their wine goblets. And then can you imagine that? Like, picture these enormous creatures just hanging out, having drinks from these massive stone cups.
And what do the archaeologists think?
So the archaeological evidence is pointing to something quite different, right? They believe these jars were actually used as funerary urns, like they'd place human remains in them. And here's the really fascinating part. These jars, they date back to around 1240 BC. But get this, the human remains they've found in the area, they're actually younger than the jars themselves.
So, is there a lot of research being done there now?
Well, that's actually another really complicated part of this whole mystery. You see, the site it's actually really dangerous to study because, and this is just heartbreaking, you know, there's still unexploded ordnance from the Vietnam War scattered throughout the area. So, and this is just devastating. It's really holding back research efforts.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty sad.
Right? And just think about the scale of this site. We're talking about thousands of these stone jars spread across this mountainous terrain. And each one of these jars, right, they weigh several tons. Just imagine the effort it took to create these things, transport them, and set them up. Like, the engineering knowledge they must have had, it's absolutely incredible.
So this next mystery is actually pretty controversial, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes. Like, this one is just, it's absolutely mind-bending, you know? We're talking about Guanabara Bay in Brazil, and this incredible claim that was made back in, and this was in 1982 by this shipwreck explorer named Robert Marks.
What exactly did he find there?
So this is the wild part, right? Marks reported finding these Roman amphoras, which are like, you know, these ancient storage vessels right at the bottom of Guanabara Bay. And the implications of this, I mean, if it was true, right, it would mean that Romans had somehow made it to Brazil more than 1,000 years before the Portuguese ever arrived.
That seems pretty huge. Why haven't I heard more about this?
Well, that's where things get really complicated, you know, because the whole thing is just, it's wrapped up in this massive controversy. Like, Marx faced these really serious allegations about looting, and then there was all this governmental interference going on. And the thing is, right, there's actually no concrete evidence to back up these claims about Romans being in Brazil.
So nobody's been able to verify his findings?
Exactly. And that's what makes this such a fascinating mystery for Ancient Echoes, right? Because we've got this potentially groundbreaking discovery that could totally rewrite what we know about ancient maritime travel, but we just can't confirm it. Like, the whole thing is still completely unresolved, and experts are still debating about it even today.
Is there any chance of finding more evidence?
You know, that's the really frustrating part, because Guanabara Bay is this massive body of water, and there could be more evidence down there somewhere, but underwater archaeology is just, it's incredibly challenging, you know, and when you add in all the controversy surrounding Marx's original claims, it's made the whole site kind of radioactive in the archaeological community, if you know what I mean.
So, let's move on to something really incredible in Peru, the Nazca Lines. I mean, the scale of these things is just...
Oh my goodness, yes. Like, these are just, they're absolutely mind-blowing, you know? We're talking about these massive, and I mean massive geoglyphs that are literally carved right into the desert floor. And the amazing thing is, right, they weren't even discovered until the 1930s when people started flying over the area.
What exactly can you see from up there?
So it's just absolutely incredible, right? You've got these perfectly straight lines that go on for miles, these huge geometric patterns, and then you've got these amazing representations of animals and plants. Like, there's this spider figure that's just, it's absolutely enormous, you know? And this hummingbird that's so perfectly drawn, it's mind-boggling how they did it.
The precision must have been incredible. How did they even do that without being able to see it from above?
That's exactly what makes this such a fascinating mystery, right? Because these ancient people, they somehow managed to create these massive, and I mean massive, designs with this incredible precision, and and they did it all from ground level. Like, we're talking about figures that you can only really appreciate when you're hundreds of feet up in the air. You know?
Have researchers figured out why they made them?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, right? Because there are all these different theories floating around. Like, some researchers think they might have been connected to water rituals, which makes sense because water was super precious in the desert. But, and this is the thing, right? We still don't have a definitive answer about their exact purpose.
Are they still finding new ones?
Oh my goodness, yes. And that's what's so exciting about this whole thing. Like, researchers are still discovering new geoglyphs even today, which just adds to the whole mystery. You know? Every time they find a new one, it's like adding another piece to this massive puzzle that we're still trying to figure out. And the preservation of these lines is just remarkable, considering they've been out there in the desert for hundreds and hundreds of years.
So, what about Stonehenge? I mean, everyone knows about it, but there's still so much mystery around it, right?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Like, this is just, it's mind-blowing when you really think about it, you know? We're talking about this incredible structure that people started building like 5,000 years ago, and get this right, they started working on it before England even entered the Bronze Age.
That's way older than I thought. What do we actually know about it?
So here's what's really fascinating, right? We know it was definitely used as a burial site, and we've actually managed to figure out where these massive stones came from. Like, the really big ones, right? They've been traced back to specific quarries, but, and this is the thing that just blows my mind, we still don't fully understand how they moved these enormous stones and got them into position.
The construction must have been, I mean, the logistics of it.
Exactly. Like, we're talking about these absolutely massive stones, and the people back then somehow managed to transport them over really long distances, right? And then, and this is what's really incredible, they somehow lifted them up and positioned them with this amazing precision. The engineering knowledge they must have had. It's absolutely remarkable, you know?
Do we know what they used it for besides the burials?
Well, that's where things get super interesting, right? Because there are all these different theories about its purpose. Like, some researchers think it had this really important religious significance. Others say it was for ceremonies, and then you've got people studying its astronomical alignments. Some even suggest it might have had some kind of therapeutic purpose.
Wait, therapeutic?
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, right? Because every time researchers think they've figured something out, there's another layer of mystery that comes up. And despite all our modern technology and years of study, we still can't say for sure exactly why they built it, or even exactly how they built it. It's one of those incredible mysteries that keeps drawing people in, you know?
Man, looking back at all these mysteries we've talked about today, it's kind of mind-blowing how much we still don't know about our ancient past, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what really gets me? It's like, each of these sites we've discussed, right? They're not just mysteries. They're like these incredible windows into these ancient civilizations, you know? From the Paracas candelabra to Stonehenge. And and everything in between.
What do you think that uh, says about our ancestors? I mean, they built all this stuff without any of our modern technology.
That's exactly it, right? These people they were absolutely brilliant. Like they had this amazing understanding of engineering and astronomy and construction techniques that we're still trying to figure out today. And and what's really fascinating is how these mysteries, right? They keep teaching us new things about human ingenuity and creativity.
Do you think we'll ever solve all these mysteries?
You know what? I actually hope we don't. Like these mysteries, right? They keep driving us forward, keep making us ask questions, and they remind us that there's always more to learn about our past. They're what makes archaeology so exciting, you know?
Well, that's all we've got time for on today's episode of Ancient Echoes. Thanks for joining us on this journey through some of the world's most intriguing ancient mysteries. We will be uploading weekly onwards from this point and hope to spark some interest. Comment if you'd like us to cover a specific topic or upcoming theories. We are open to everything.
And remember, everyone, sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the questions we haven't answered yet. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.